Hey guys, welcome to another beautiful Thursday night, and I'm your host, the Nook, on a beautiful The Nook Thursdays, and today we're going to be playing, well, in the background we're going to be playing Don't Starve here, but basically, we're just going to be having a good old chat fest, like we usually do. We're going to go ahead and play in our dank world here, which is what I really want to do. And let's boot it up, ladies and gentlemen. Alrighty. This should take a little while, but welcome if you're watching. And thank you for watching. We appreciate every viewer that comes on to this stream. Anywho, if you're wondering where Alligator is, she's actually back home, which is pretty amazing. And by back home, I mean over in Texas for a little while. It's just kind of a temporary thing going on for right now. Anyway, she's going to be back in about 2 weeks, so for 2 weeks you're going to have just me, the Nook, for live streams. As a matter of fact, I think she's actually going to be doing a live stream over there. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, anywho, that's going to be happening. And, so yeah, that's what we're going to be doing. But anyways, let me see, what are we going to talk about today? Let's see if that actually posted in the Discord here. It did not. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can't get this thing to run actually first. We'll see if we can actually play Don't Starve together. We're using my cruddy little laptop here because it's quiet hours and I gotta be nocturnal. So yeah, there's that. I gotta turn my sensitivity up so I can hear myself. There we go. You can hear the little clicking of the mouse here. Yep. And you can hear the little clicking of the keyboard. There we go. And I can hear me, which is pretty good. I don't think I'm being too loud. Let me just check the OBS here. No, I think I'm doing pretty good. Alrighty. And we're just waiting for Don't Starve to respond. If it doesn't, that's okay. We'll move on to something else. We'll probably be surfing through the internet and stuff like that. But if you guys haven't noticed, just in case you're still watching, let me actually see if it's still broadcasting. Okay, that's pretty loud. Whew. I did not realize that I was that loud. Anyways, oh, I am thinking this is not going to work. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. And we'll look at some Pokemon. We'll look at some Pokemans. We'll look at some Pokemans. That'll be great. It'll be great. Don't worry about it. Close program. As soon as I close it, I guarantee you the stream health will be a lot better. Anyways, since we got a watcher, could you go ahead and comment in the live chat there? Say something, we could start a conversation or something like that, and we can go on from there. Any troubles you got going on? Anything that maybe we could help you out with, or anything like that? Because I'm your host, the Nook, and I'm here all night for you, the listener. You know what? I actually have a folder with all of my teams, all of my fantasy Pokemon teams for different regions. Hold on. Oh, where was it? It was in downloads, wasn't it? Hold on. Yes, it was. It's basically going to be a blank screen so far, but I'm going to go ahead and change that a little bit. Alrighty, let's go with... Yeah, let's go with this one. Okay. Let's change up this scene. That's not okay. Scene 2. I think this is what it is. No, it's not. Darn. Okay, so let's remove that one. And then we're going to go ahead and add a image. There we go. And it is going to be a map of the Pokemon world. Well, not really the Pokemon world. I think this is, I think it's actually going to be Hoenn? Is it Hoenn? No, this is Kalos. There we go. Oh, it's really blurry. Let me see if I can get a better picture. Unova? No. I don't want to use anybody else's art here, except for maybe Game Freaks. Yeah, we'll use the globe here. Just go ahead and enlarge that. Space. The final frontier. I gotta stop entertaining myself and start trying to entertain you guys. Alrighty, there we go. So that is in fact Unova. That little crosshair there is where Unova is in the Pokemon world, just in case you guys don't know what the Pokemon world is. Basically, it's an alternate version of our own world. And if you don't know what Pokemon is, then you've been probably living under a rock for this time. All this time you've been living under a rock. You poor soul. But anyways, if you guys don't know, I, the Nook, am indeed a Pokemon fan. And yes, that still stands for fanatic. But I think that's the only thing that I'm actually considering myself a fan of. Because, I mean, I'm not necessarily a furry, because I'm not a fan of anthropomorphic animals, or all the other stuff that they got going on, like scalies and avians. I think they're called avians, not quite entirely sure. And slimies, I like those. They're toads and frogs and salamanders are really adorable. Oh, and there's this one snail. The snail's adorable too, but I digress. So anyways, not really a big fan of the furry fandom. I mean, I wouldn't consider myself a fan of the My Little Pony fandom either, or My Little Pony in general, even though I used to watch it, and even made I guess a Sona? Not really. It's just kind of like a translation of what I'd imagine a character would look like. Not necessarily me. So, anyways, it's not necessarily a Sona or OC. Actually, yeah, it would be an OC, but not a Sona. I think that's how it goes. Anywho, so, but I am a big fan of Pokemon. That's what I'm trying to say, is I am a big fan of Pokemon. And I absolutely adore the way that that Game Freak used to do it. And I started out with Johto, which is the second generation region, and it's right next door to Kanto. And then I moved over to Kanto. Game wise, I traded Pokemon Silver for Pokemon Fire Red, or not Fire Red, just regular Red, and traded another game for Blue, and didn't find the link cable until both games were gone. Which is kind of a sad thing, but you know, it happens. But I just remember falling in love with that. And if you haven't checked out my Twitch streams, actually, Blaze It Eduardo on Twitch. I actually have this whole thing going on. I'm playing through Pokemon Crystal in a hardcore kind of challenge mode called the Neo Rocket Challenge, and I'll get into that in a bit. But so here we are, playing in Johto, and then I go into Kanto and start playing the first generation game, and realize, oh cool, I get to fight those trainers in Johto, and then I go along and I'm like, okay, this is really, really cool. And so I got really, really into it, and I got so into it that I pinned I think it was my brother, onto the ground when he came into my room, and he said that he actually deleted my progress, or that he played and saved the game, because he didn't know that if you save the game, there's only one save slot. Well, I was here up to the Elite Four, and then here I am, and then I beat the Elite Four, saved the game, and then he erases all my data. And I was just like, no. So I got super, super angry, put him on the ground, and I got grounded from Pokemon for a long time. And so I was literally grounded from Pokemon, the franchise Pokemon, for nearly, I think, 7 years of my life. And it was just hilarious. I mean, just the stupidity of it, and that I had to be grounded for that long. And the next game that I actually hit up was the Hoenn region Ruby version, and that was on a Game Boy Advance inside of a van with my friend, and he didn't know that I was grounded for life, basically, or until college. And so I played it, and then my mom found out, and then she beat my butt, and I was grounded for even longer. And so basically until adulthood, you know. I mean, you can go to college earlier if you wanted to, but I never got to go to college. So, anywho, and then I never touched any Pokemon games since then, until I was 20 years old, and that was 3 years ago. Do the math, you know my age. For now. Anyways, I'm really just stammering. I have this pizza roll inside of my fingers, and I'm just waiting to eat it. And I've been talking for 15 minutes. I just realized I've been talking for 15 minutes, staring down a pizza roll without ever actually eating it. Hold on a second. Okay, so it was a pepperoni and bacon, but you definitely taste the bacon a lot more. It's just like a flat-out bacon Totino pizza roll. Hashtag not a sponsored video. Anywho. So, here we are, and we're chilling. Receiving enough video to maintain... What? It's just a freaking static picture. What do you mean the stream health is terrible? So here I was, and the next game that I actually played was Soul Silver. When I finally was, you know, at adulthood and able to choose for myself whether or not I wanted to play it. So I didn't get as addicted as I did when I was younger, but I still am a fan of the series, and I'm definitely going to be saving up money to buy a Switch just so I can buy Sword and Shield. Specifically Shield. I just like the Shield aspect of the games, but I'm probably gonna have to get Sword version for whatever reason. But I am a big fan. A very, very big fan. And so, just as many other people are fans of the Pokemon world, which is what you see here on the image, they start to make versions of themselves in the games, or in the world itself. And so I came up with a character primarily based off of me. One of the first characters that I do actually primarily based on me, me as an individual. And one of the first. I just want to point that out. One of the first. There's actually one that I helped influence, but a friend of mine actually based it off of me. Actually, you can check him out. He's a really cool YouTuber. He does really amazing art. Go ahead and check out Maxton. If you know who Maxton is. I'm gonna have like links. I'm gonna like keep adding these links into the description or something. I also got to change it from Don't Starve to Pokemon. There we go. Can I put just Pokemon? Let's see if I can put just Pokemon. Game title recommended. Anyways. But yeah, there I go, stuttering again. Oh, there I go, stuttering again. But, basically, the whole thing was, where was I going with it? Right, my Pokemon character. So, it started with a Pokemon character, and then it evolved into adventures or a backstory that the Pokemon character had, and what's up with the Pokemon character next. You know, he's already caught up to Alola. He's more of an, very young adult at around 16 or 17, which is pretty old for a Pokemon trainer in any of the games. And then you look at it, and where does he go next? And what's his whole backstory? And so I kind of made it a backstory where it could evolve with the series itself. Of course, come a certain time, the character is probably going to have like a passing away date or something like that. But so, anyways, the character is of course based after me, and he ends up being basically founder of what's called Neo Rocket. Which is a team that, if you do look up Neo Rocket, there's only one other instance of an official Neo Rocket thing by Game Freak, which is technically the revived Rocket team that should have been in Pokemon Silver, Crystal, Gold, Heart Gold, and Soul Silver. But never actually was called Neo Rocket, which is kind of interesting. Anywho, I called it Neo Rocket because it had a nice ring to it, and upon a year later doing some more study into it, I found out that's the only other instance, and they wear masks and Neo Rocket doesn't. Basically, if you've heard in this entire series, I have sometimes ranted about how Silphco or all these other people are basically like major villains in the entire series. And, they're the true villains. And that's basically what I was basing it off of. These are people that are... The Neo Rocket team is a bunch of people that he came across, basically, or heard about, and wanted to recruit them. Gave them a choice to fight for Pokemon freedom, basically. And let them choose whether or not they want to join or anything. They don't do anything brash like try and sell Pokemon for more funds or anything like that. As a matter of fact, they're probably, the poorest of any Pokemon team. You thought Team Skull was poor? Yeah, that's another subject for another day. But anywho, they really don't have any funding at all. The only reason why they're up is because they decide to keep going, and they survive off the land. A lot of them, and some of them are taken care of by other Rocket member or Neo Rocket members. The whole origin behind the name was you've got Team Rocket, which is one of the teams that he saw the first hand that really upset him when he was younger, first starting out as a trainer. And he finds out that they're selling and harming Pokemon, more specifically. And as he finds that out, he decides, you know what, I'm going to do something about this. And he gets up and he starts having this adventure, basically. Of course, he had two Pokemon starting out with. He had a Vulpix and a Sandshrew. Not ordinary Vulpix or Sandshrews in the slightest. He hatched them himself from eggs, and it was during the winter time. This is the kind of story that I really had a lot of thought into, or put a lot of thought into. There we go. I gotta try and use some proper grammar here. But, so it's winter time. He has these two eggs that he got, and he ran away from home, basically, as a trainer. And since he didn't really want to battle because he didn't have any Pokemon, he thought, you know what, instead of being a trainer that throws Pokeballs, I'm going to be a trainer that tries to befriend Pokemon instead. Instead of just, capturing them and then befriending them. Skip that altogether and just befriend them. Then you have a Pokemon friend for life. And, so he goes along and he learns that this whole life is harder than he thought. And it's winter time, and he's tired, and he's cold, and he has barely any kind of insulation, and just a raggedy old coat. And he goes to sleep. And when he wakes up, there's these two Pokemon, huddled up right next to him. And one of them is a Sandshrew that has an obsidian shell instead of a hard sandstone kind of shell that most Sandshrews typically have. Then you have the Vulpix, and instead of having, it doesn't turn out immediately, but generally when a Vulpix is first hatched, it has one single white tail, and as it grows and becomes older, its single tail splits off into, I think it was 6 individual tails. Let me look that up real quick, actually. Vulpix. We're going to go through some little Pokemon facts as well. And it doesn't have 9 tails, because that's when it evolves into 9 tails. Either that or with, Firestone. But there is ways for Vulpix to actually evolve naturally without Firestones. And Firestones can be natural, it's just... Anyways. Introduced in Generation 1, it evolves into 9 tails when exposed to a Firestone, and Alola Vulpix has an Ice-type regional variant. It evolves into Alola 9 tails when exposed to an Ice Stone. Yay. Okay. I think... That's right, a one-tailed Vulpix as seen in Pokemon Battle Frontier. Then we have the Pokedex entries here, if I can actually get them. There we go. At the time of birth, it has just one tail. The tail splits from its tip as it grows older. Both its fur and its tails are beautiful. As it grows, the tails split and form more tails. A single white-colored tail splits into 6 beautiful tails. As it grows older, it grows even more tails. There we go. So, until it turns into 9 tails. And once it grows its final 9th tail, it evolves into Ninetales immediately. But it takes a very, very long time for a Vulpix to actually evolve that way. Anywho, Pokemon fact aside, this Vulpix was a little bit different later on, as he didn't know at the time because he didn't have a Pokedex or anything like that. The Vulpix retained its single white tail, and also had its 6 other tails. So basically, it split into 6 individuals, but also retained its 7th original one, basically. So 7 tails in total, which was uncommon for any kind of Vulpix. Anyways, that's just kind of like the big difference between it. And I like to kind of put these kind of instances, not like a Typhlosion wielding a Honedge or anything like that, but yeah, just something kind of off about the Pokemon. And anyway, so as he goes along, the Vulpix kept him warm during that winter, and Sandshrew tagged along and was an excellent forager and was actually able to find some things that he could eat. Well, he comes to a town, and he was actually taken in by an elderly couple, and they find out that, or he finds out from the elderly couple, as they were talking when he was, going to sleep that night. He could hear them in the other room discussing about the Cretans, as they would call them back then, or ruffians and thugs that were, in the next town over, trying to harm Pokemon. And of course, at this time, he loves Pokemon. His Vulpix has about 3 tails at about this time, and it's just starting to it's just starting spring at that time, and he ends up going to the next town over, and he finds out that Pokemon battling isn't as nice as some people might think about it. Oh, 0 viewers. That's fine. Okay. Actually, let me... Doop. So, as he's here in the Pokemon world, I mean, he's born there, that's the only world that he knows about. He finds out that these people called Team Rocket and their leader Giovanni are doing terrible things to Pokemon, and he's basically helpless. Well, his Pokemon stand up, and at that moment he realizes, I have to become stronger so I can protect people. Typical kind of anime protagonist thing. And he goes and sets off on an adventure to do so. Finds an Eevee, a couple other companions, and I actually have a folder with all of them from every region. So let me see. Kanto Johto. Right, finds an Eevee. It evolves later into Jolteon. And yeah, and they go on, and the first stop that they have after that, it was a year after or so, and Team Rocket had basically gone on the run due to major authority issues. But he was tracking them down, basically, and found a lead and decided to follow it. Well, he goes along, and Team Rocket is harassing a village with a bunch of Farfetch'd, not too far off. So he goes and he decides to help out, and he finds out that he's actually become a bit stronger. He, as a trainer, can actually understand his Pokemon a bit more. He's more wary of them. Of course, he still fights alongside them, and tries to actually shoo the Rocket members and grunts instead of just stereotypical, hey, let's Pokemon battle, and whoever wins has to do what the other one says. A little bit more realistic, I mean, a kid who's approximately 11 at the time, throwing rocks at all these guys, would obviously anger them, but when you have a freaking, needle, dog that can shoot lightning, and a Sandshrew that can basically, get launched, or launch itself like a freaking cannonball, and a Vulpix that can obviously just breathe fire. I mean, it's just freaking fire. It's a flamethrower. It's pretty deadly. It's like third-degree burns. You calculate this inside of that kind of world. And so here he is, and he's he's going through and does the Pokemon battle, and he was a bit late though, and he realizes that a lot of the Farfetch'd were actually killed, and they were starting to pluck the feathers out, and basically they were going to use Farfetch'd as a major food source, which is actually inside Farfetch'd's Pokedex entry. Let's go to Farfetch'd for a nice little Pokemon fact. Farfetch'd, which is spelt really weird. I think it's the only Pokemon with an apostrophe in its name. Wild duck Pokemon. Let's see if I can get this going. Doodly doodly doo. That's easier. I could just scroll using the mouse. Okay. The sprig of green onions it holds is its weapon. It is used much like a metal sword. Lives where lives where reedy plants grow. They are rarely seen, so it's thought their numbers are decreasing. Always carries the stalk of an unidentified plant. The stalk is said to be used for making a nest or as a weapon, which is kind of funny because it says green onions in red and blue, and lives where reedy plants grow, and then it says an unidentified plant. Okay. If anyone tries to disturb where the essential plant sticks grow, it uses its own stick to thwart them. If it eats the plant stick it carries as emergency rations, it runs off in search of a new stick. In order to prevent their extinction, more people have made an effort to breed these Pokemon. If anyone tries to disturb where the essential plants... Okay, I already read that one. It can't live without the stalk it holds. That's why it defends the stalk from attackers with its life. If anyone tries to disturb where the essential plant stick grows... Okay, that's the same thing. Heart Gold and Soul Silver. And, yeah, so basically, they're an endangered species after a little while. Farfetch'd. And so, I just closed Google. Darn. I should still be streaming. I think I'm still streaming, yeah. So, Farfetch'd here, is a little bit different. He's kind of like an elder Farfetch'd, and he befriends the trainer, and as Farfetch'd is a little bit different. He's kind of like a more experienced Farfetch'd, so he takes about 3 twigs, and I just kind of used 3 twigs as a reference and uses them as swords because, I mean, it's One Piece. Come on, it's just, Roronoa Zoro. The guy's just 3 sword style is amazing. Anyways. I later changed it to just 2 stalks of the stick that they use, basically. But he's so skilled with it that basically he's a Benkei of sorts. And not a Benkei. Musashi Miyamoto? I think Musashi Miyamoto, yeah. He's basically one of those. And uses sticks, and basically uses sword dance and its keen eye ability and stuff like that. Anywho, it decides that it's going to fight alongside him, not only to clear its debt, as Farfetch'd are practically a very noble Pokemon. He also wants to get revenge against all his, people, basically, that Team Rocket had killed. And it is a big thing. You don't really see it inside of Pokemon, obviously. They're not just going to be like, okay, you are going to be used for food, but you have to give us permission to kill you and eat you. And the Pokemon's just going to be like, okay, yeah, sure. I don't think so. Anyways. So then we go to the point where, as he grows a little bit more, he keeps losing more and more. And he's wondering, do I really, really, really want to keep going on with this? You know? And, do I really want to keep fighting for this? And so about this time, he's about a year older. So he's about 12 or so years old. And, his Sandshrew evolves into Sandslash. His Vulpix evolves into a Ninetales, which is actually a Ten-Tails by now. And then you have Lapras, and Lapras comes along and basically saves his life from a boating accident. He tussled with Team Rocket, who were trying to chase a very rare Pokemon, which just so happens to be Lapras, and basically utilize its shell and other pieces on the black market to gain more money. And so the Lapras evades them, and he gets thrown underwater along with most of his Pokemon. Of course, he doesn't have any Pokeballs, so some of them can't swim, like Sandshrew. Vulpix has a very hard time. Jolteon is a pretty good swimmer, actually, and Farfetch can just fly. So this Lapras comes out of nowhere, saves his life, and sticks with him on the beach until he's conscious again, which is very uncommon for a Lapras. They're usually somebody that, it's a Pokemon that's more of a mythical kind of aspect to it. Like, it ferries people across the ocean on its back and stuff like that. So, but this Lapras was a little bit different, and that's just because it acts different, and that's the big difference about that Lapras. Because not every Pokemon is exactly the same, and I kind of wanted to include that into the story. Well, he later comes across a Ditto and yada yada, and basically decides to move on from this area to become a little bit stronger and defeat Giovanni. Well, he moves over to Johto, which is the next country basically over. And as he's over in Johto, he learns a lot more, probably sees Ho-Oh and stuff like that, and hears about the Pokemon legends and feels the breeze that Suicune comes along, and he's basically just growing and growing off the wilderness and becoming stronger and more attuned to the Pokemon world and yada yada, and seeing the intricacies of the ecology and such like that, how things intertwine. He goes back to Kanto and finds out that Team Rocket had been thwarted without him. And he's like, great, okay, cool. So he goes back to Johto after visiting everybody, and everybody just seems to be colder to him, and more gray in color, just lifeless kind of thing. And he found that he just really values, or he found that the living in the wilderness with his Pokemon and having that kind of relationship was more of a wholesome kind of lifestyle than people who didn't really care about him, like, would leave him in the cold and stuff like that. Well, of course, the elderly couple that took him in was probably gone by then, stuff like that. That was loud. Okay, Discord. I'm just going to go ahead and mute this one, just in case. And that should be okay. Okay. And then he goes on to Johto again. Well, as he's going over there to Johto, he lives his life and thinks everything's going honky-dory. And then about 2 years later, here he is about 14, and Pokemon, are being snatched up left and right. Slowpokes are having their tails cut off. And he finds out that Rocket had re-emerged, and so he was going to put an end to it. Well, he comes across a couple Rocket members, finds out they're not the same, they're trying to get Rocket back together, and he thinks this is a great time to do him in, just nip it in the bud, and inevitably fails to actually do so, but does actually help out with making sure that it fails, but he wasn't the main source of, he wasn't the linchpin in it. He was just kind of a helper. So he realized at that point that there's constantly going to be people that are going against Pokemon, and he finds that there's all these secrets emerging from Silphco and all this other stuff, and how Silphco treats Pokemon, and how it's not a cool thing to just shove tiny creatures in a ball and make their brain, brainwash their Pokemon. There we go. That's what I'm going for. And that's the big thing, is why would you take a sentient creature and completely strip it of its sentience, that kind of thing. Well, humans are technological beings. He decides, I gotta put a stop to this and fight the real villains. He sets out around the world, ferries across the ocean on his Lapras's back, and inevitably comes across a storm. I don't know why I keep using the word inevitably. I don't know. So he comes across a storm in the middle of the ocean, and he gets thrown off the back of Lapras, and all of his Pokemon are gone. And at that point, he feels powerless. His whole family basically is gone. How can he go on? Well, he lands himself in the Hoenn region, which isn't too far from Kanto. Well, he, as he's going through, he finds out Team Aqua and Team Magma are doing their things, and they're not really doing anything all that bad in his eyes. I mean, they're just trying to awaken ancient Pokemon. How bad could that be, So he goes the other way, and he sees Devon Corp. And he realizes that they're actually in cahoots with Silphco, which is one of the major villains. Basically major corporations. And I don't usually think this way. Just as a heads up, I don't actually think that way in real life. That, for some reason there's, just organizations trying to take over the world or anything like that. But, he goes on in this adventure, and he realizes even though he doesn't have Pokemon, maybe he can have a say in things. Well, he goes across the world of Hoenn, not the world, but the region of Hoenn, and gets his bearings, and comes across some Pokemon, and they decide to follow him. Mostly a Sableye for no apparent reason, and then a Mawile, and then a Turkle, and they have a choice and can follow him or not. And people try and throw Pokeballs at them sometimes, and he makes sure that they don't get caught. And yeah, so they have this kind of thing together. So they go on, and he starts thwarting all of these underground business deals and getting a team together. Not just a Pokemon team, but actual human teams, to try and actually take down, major corporations. But he decides, it's better to try and wait and strike instead of just jumping into it. So, he heard that there was quite a few people who had the same viewpoint on life in the Sinnoh region. So he asked where that was, and he goes to the Sinnoh region, and he asks this Pokemon, hey, do you really want to go with me? Last time this happened, basically bad things happened. And so Turkle went ahead and left, and Mawile and Sableye decided to follow him. And so he goes ahead and goes. Oh, and Luxray. Except it wasn't a Luxray then, it was the Sphinx? Shrinks. Shinx? Shinx. There we go. It was a Shinx. And so, they go ahead and go over to Sinnoh, and so he comes across other Pokemon. Some of them are being tormented, some of them sees others being tormented, and they decide to join him. And so he comes along, and oh helps out with a lot of things in the background, and the whole... I don't want to, like, spoil, like, a whole story or anything like that, but this is basically, like, the beginning of Team Neo Rocket. And he gets all these people, and this whole thing starts to... this whole group starts to start, and it turns out just like one of those kind of, you know, growing stories. One of those cool things, you know, just one of those things that you think about and think, that's kind of cool and nice. That's definitely something original that Pokemon doesn't technically capture, you know, the bond between people. And so it's not like they're constantly assaulting these major corporations or anything like that. In matter of fact, most of them are just trying to keep alive. Neo Rocket titles were given out, and I can give more of that later because I'm actually going to make a Neo Rocket, an official Neo Rocket Discord server where I'm going to go ahead and have people, if you guys want to join, you can go ahead and comment or talk in the live chat or whatever. And I'll get back to you guys in later Nook Thursdays. And we'll go ahead and see if we can do a little recruiting. But, oh, there's Discord again. Oh, hello. So, that's what I'm going to try and do. And I don't know if, you know, anybody would be really interested, but it's going to be there nonetheless. We can talk about Pokemon, and we can have our own little designs, and we can have like a little art channel and stuff like that, and we can show how we think of ourselves in the Pokemon world. Basically, we're just going to have a fun time nerding out and being Pokemon trainers. Of course, the only rules would have to be, well, I'll explain those inside the Discord server and the other Nook Thursdays as well. We're actually running a little schedule here. We don't really want the live streams to be past an hour or anything like that, so... Anywho, main character creates Neo Rocket, heads over to Unova after a while to recruit some more people, and comes across the second major leader, or she becomes the major leader, and later, but anyways, the major leaders are called satellites. That's their position. Like, instead of them calling them grunts or admins or whatever, there's different positions, and each person is basically the same as the other one. They're all equals, but their duties are different, and that kind of thing happens. Anyways, he goes over there at Unova and meets this other trainer who has basically the same viewpoints as him, and it seems somewhat like a love interest kind of story, but it's just like they both share the same love for Pokemon and concerns for Pokemon, and that's the real thing that's really binding them together, not just some sort of like, oh, you're just like me, let's kiss. That's just really, really shallow in my mind. But anyways, his whole team grows with him and shows that other Pokemon leave, other Pokemon decide to stay behind, other Pokemon join him on his journeys, and his team is constantly shifting, and it's not an optimal team like for metagaming or anything like that, but definitely, definitely something. After they go to Unova, they make their way to Kalos, and he finds more stuff that's wrong. Major Pokeball factories, and at this time, the team Neo Rocket is big enough to actually start moving, and he starts, devising these counter strikes against certain things, in a more peaceful way, not like we're gonna use Hyper Beam to try and take down a Pokeball factory. That's just not really that cool. So, some of the people in all the regions start looking at Neo Rocket as kind of like vigilantes. Not really bad, but people who are fighting for good, Why would you, force people to catch Pokemon and not heal their Pokemon at a Pokemon Center unless they're in a Pokeball? And this is going off of game logic, not anime logic. I don't actually think the anime is very canonical at all, actually. So anyways, he goes over to Kalos, and she goes over to, I think it was Alola. Alola? No, she goes over to Kalos. He goes over to Alola. And they're both basically satellites. They're the people that are going across the world. And as you can see on the map there, that's Unova right there on the little yellow highlighted square, like I said before. But so where was I before Unova? Right, teamwork and all that. Basically, they're trying to use diplomacy, and when other people are starting to use force, they would retaliate, basically, you know, counter, and or mirror move, basically. And so at that point, people are just all against them, the big corporate guys like Silphco, because they're actually bringing sales down, and they want money, that kind of thing. And I thought that would be kind of like a cool linchpin to the whole thing. And they don't make themselves out to be like major heroes or anything like that. Instead, they decide that they're going to try and help Pokemon with Pokemon. And if they don't receive any kind of recognition, that's fine too. And all they're doing is just trying to do what they know is right. And they decide to do it. And I think we need a little bit more of that. So if I find some trainers out there with similar stories and just have this idea of, you know, helping each other out, like this beautiful little picture here, coming in a time of need, not for any kind of, you know, benefit. You're using every little thing that you have. Every little resource that you have that could keep you alive and giving it to someone else, regardless of what could happen to you. Just a complete selflessness is all that Neo Rocket is all about. And so yeah, there's that. And I think I'm actually coming up on time. An eye out on those comments for these videos. And yeah. Don't forget, this video is also going to have a link in the future to the Neo Rocket official Discord. And it'll have explanations on different titles, where you would be, different positions. Like there's Control, which are basically people that stay behind and try and grow berry farms or help out, you know, Pokemon that are injured, basically. They're like first responders in that region. And there's a lot of them, and they're everywhere, and not many people know about them. But they're experts in the medical field and such like that. And that's not to say that you can be a satellite and be an expert in a, you know, medical field at all either. And, as a matter of fact, in order to be a satellite, you probably have to qualify in 4 or more positions at the same time. But yeah, we'll get that. We'll get it done. And yeah. So, it'll have different descriptions of different places that you could be. You can, of course, change positions and yada yada. I think the only rule would probably be you are your trainer. And there's only one trainer per person. One original character per person if you're going to be a member of Neo Rocket. And so, yeah, that's going to be a big thing. Also, if you guys want to check out the Neo Rocket Challenge on the Twitch stream, go ahead and check that out. Blaze it Eduardo on Twitch, and I should have quite a few videos up there already. I'm actually going to be streaming tomorrow at around, and just about every day except Sunday, to the best of my ability, from 1:30 Eastern Standard Time to about 2:30 Eastern Standard Time every day except Sunday. And if you guys want to check out 8-Star Kaijin, he's also a good friend of ours. He's on Twitch as well. He likes to stream something called Marathon Intermission just about every, I think, Friday and Saturday. Also, I'm going to be guest starring on his channel, if we can get that done. The Neo Rocket links are going to be in the description in the future of this video. It's not going to be on the live stream. It's going to be on the gosh, the saved video. There we go. In the description of that one. Anyways, Then we have, right, 8-Star Kaijin. He does a show called Marathon Intermission on Twitch. Check him out. I'm going to be a guest star. We're going to play Mega Man Battle Network, and we're going to be boss at it, and we're going to be so boss that we're going to beat base. That's a big thing inside of those games, if you find old Game Boy Advance games interesting and talking about nerdy stuff like that. Then we also have, I think it was, right, Maxton Dean. He's a very, very talented artist. I would recommend checking out his YouTube channel. I don't know if he actually Twitches much. I don't think he does Twitch much or streams on Twitch much. I gotta see if he can actually, get that going. But he's pretty busy. But he's got great videos already on his channel. I would recommend looking him up. Maxton, Maxton Dean, Dean, and he's a great artist. I love his style. And matter of fact, he's the one who made a character for me in a series that he was doing called Stealth Army, and he's currently, I wouldn't say currently, but he's definitely working on that. And he actually gave me one of the first concept comics that he laminated himself and actually gave it to me, and it was amazing. And I still got it. It's inside my little folder, and I treasure it forever and always. But yeah, that's about it. Thanks you guys for tuning in. And if you guys want to see a stream tomorrow, I don't know if Gator is actually going to be doing that, but yeah, that's been about it for today, Thursday, April, what is it? Thursday, April 18th. And this is your host, the Nook, and it's been a pleasure to talk your ear off and probably put you to sleep about all the Pokemon stuff that I talk about. I mean, seriously, I talked about Pokemon for literally like 5 hours straight in a van. It was amazing. Anyways, thanks for watching. Please tune in again, and if you want to, go ahead and support the stream a little bit. We got some links in the descriptions already, where you can buy some merch that some friends made, and all of this stuff goes to either us and or them, to help support them, and basically help start our lives out. Nothing's free, but we can all be there for each other, and that's kind of what Neo Rocket is also about as well. But anyways, thanks so much. Tune in again next Thursday, same great Gatory channel, and stay fluffy. What was it? Stay fluffy, my furries, and no, stay warm, my fluffies, and stay cool, my scalies. Or was it vice versa? Stay warm, my scalies, and stay cool, my fluffies. I don't know. Gator's working on that. I think that was one of the outros that she wanted to do. But this has been your host, the Nook, and I'll catch you next Thursday. Deuces.